Evet, Sayın Bolter'ı dinledikten sonra bu kez CDP Politika ve Büyüme Direktörü Dear Pietro Bertazzi'yi davet etmek isterim ve invite Dear.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a true pleasure for me to be here back in Istanbul today, and a great pleasure to be with all of you. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Thank you, first of all, to CDP Turkey and the Sabancı University Corporate Governance Forum and all the partners that made today possible. Thank you all of you for joining us today, from civil society, from businesses, from the government, from finance. We're meeting at an important moment, and we always say that, don't we? But this moment, it is quite important. It's important for Turkey, hosting COP31 this year, but it's part of a particular moment. It's a moment when companies are operating in a world that feels more volatile, more costly, more complex. Energy systems are clearly under pressure, and supply chains are being constantly disrupted. Capital is more selective, and expectations on businesses continue to rise. It's that kind of environment where competitiveness matters more than ever. And we will say, so does resilience. Increasingly, the two really go together. And this is why the conversation today is important. Environmental disclosure is no more a niche exercise. It's no longer about compliance process, no longer a conversation that happens at the margin of the boardroom. Today, disclosure is a practical business tool, a tool that enables sharper decision making, a tool that enables understanding risks, a tool that builds resilience, and a tool that helps identify where future value will come from. Over the past 25 years, CDP has been helping to move environmental information from sidelines into the center of the businesses, into the center of economic decision making. What began as a push for transparency, for disclosure as such, has evolved in something which is indeed much bigger. Today, more than 22,000 companies disclose environmental data through CDP around the world. And the data is used by investors, banks, policymakers, customers, companies themselves. It helps markets understand exposure, it helps organizations compare performance, and helps leaders to act earlier with greater confidence. That really matters. Because climate and nature are not just abstract issues, they are impacting business every day. And they're already shaping cost structures, supply chain security, access to capital, and long-term growth. Today, the rising temperatures and the decline of precipitation in Turkey are already having a major negative effect on water availability for food production and rural development. That's what UNDP is telling us. And I'm sure that you experienced that. So when we talk about reporting, we're not talking about reporting for its own sake. We're talking about business preparedness, operational robustness, commercial advantage. We're talking about who is ready to compete in a more and transparent, more demanding global economy. This is why the theme of today's event is exactly right: turning reporting momentum into global competitiveness. Momentum alone is clearly not enough, and data creates value when it informs decision. So data needs to be used. Transparency only becomes leadership when it's turned into action. The picture emerging from CDP latest analysis of Turkey is encouraging. Turkish companies are not just participating in disclosure. Turkey stands out as a front runner with the highest proportion of A-list companies relative to the number of companies scored in each market in 2025. 5 Turkish companies achieved the AAA status, simultaneously leading across climate, forest, and water security, at a time where only 27 companies worldwide reached that distinction. And that is why I was mentioning at the beginning, it's a true pleasure to be today with you. Among Turkish companies scored by CDP in 2025, which are the capital markets request or self-selected, in climate change, 32% of companies achieved leadership level, meaning they secured A or A minus. For water, the percentage is 43, and forest, 35. But those figures become more meaningful, unless you know my point of view, global perspective, when you look with a global perspective. Globally, only 13% of companies reach leadership level in climate. 43 in Turkey. Huh? This drops to 11% for water and 8% for forest. So what we see here is quite clear. Companies in this market have outperformed global averages quite significantly across all the globe. Those are not small signals, and they show that leading Turkish businesses are already setting a high bar for transparency and environmental performance. When we look more closely, the progress is not just superficial. 87% of Turkey climate leaders have 1.5 Celsius degrees aligned transition plans. Those companies reported $4 of opportunity for $1 invested in environmental initiatives. So they see the opportunities. 60% of those companies also disclose year-on-year reduction in combined Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions. So this is where what value creation indeed looks like. It is not rhetoric, it is not theory, it is action, it's practice. It is companies using disclosure to understand where they are exposed, where they can improve, where they can unlock opportunities, and grow. And that's what we're seeing in Turkey, leading the way globally in doing exactly this. I always wanted to reflect on the role of policy and regulation, which is very close to my heart. That's my main job at CDP, actually. Good regulation works best when it is practical, it is decision useful, and is connected to the market reality. That is one reason why CDP has worked to align its question bank with leading standards and frameworks. We implement standards at scale. That's what we do. We take the standards, we create a global data set based on the standards. Back in 2024, CDP aligned the corporate questionnaire with the SSB IFRS S2 as foundational baseline for climate disclosure. Today, CDP is one of the largest sources of consistent, globally comparable IFRS S2 aligned climate data for investors and decision makers. Jurisdictions representing around 60% of the global CDP, global GDP, have decided to adopt or are in the process to adopt the SSB standards. In Turkey, TSRS 1 and TSRS 2 became mandatory from 2024, and companies already disclosing through CDP are well placed for that reporting requirements. Our Turkey scaling standard snapshot, based on a broader sample of almost 200 companies, showcase that actually shows the strength and that readiness. With the TSRS incorporating the ISSB standards, we found that 93% of Turkish companies fully disclose against the IFRS S2 aligned governance questions. 91% fully disclose against risk management, and 27% year-on-year increase. That's really fantastic. And it's a strong signal of market readiness. It tells us that the companies are already developing the governance and the risk processes that make disclosure useful in practice. At the same time, there is more to do. Only 44% of Turkish companies fully disclose against all the climate-related metric questions. So the message is, well done, but the job is not yet all done. It is a direction of travel, positive, but the next stage requires further commitment and deeper implementation. This is also part of the value that CDP can bring to all of you. It helps assess readiness, identify gaps, support implementation, and make higher quality data available across the economy. So what does success looks like from here? For companies, it means continuing to embed disclosure into strategy, governance, capital allocation. It means treating climate and nature as business data, using that information not only to report, not just to disclose, but to plan forward, take action. For financial institutions, it means continuing to reward better quality disclosure and stronger transition readiness. Because when markets can distinguish between leaders and laggards, that's when the capital flows. That's where the capital flows more efficiently. For policymakers, it means creating frameworks that support consistency, comparability, and practical use to advance the national economy. And for us all as members of this society, it means focusing on making the transition a reality. The next phase will belong to the organizations that can connect transparency with action, and that can turn the data into decisions, and turn decision into measurable, Earth-positive outcomes. As Antalya prepares for COP31, Turkey has an important opportunity, not only to host a major international events. Usually the eyes of the world are on the place where COP takes place, but it has the opportunity to show what implementation really looks like in practice. And from what we can already see in the data, the Turkish companies, the business sector, are well placed to do that internationally on a global stage. The global stocktake that Dan mentioned, the Halifax champion mentioned, has set a very clear direction. The Paris Agreement requires countries to demonstrate progress. And the companies in this room are part of that story. Every disclosure made, every target set, every CO2 emission reduced are actions that give the international commitment credibility and show tangible progress. This is also why today matters. They recognize, achievement, yes, but they also send a signal. It's a signal about what good looks like, a signal about which behaviors will define the next phase of leadership, and a signal in a world shaped by the uncertainties we spoke about. Credible environmental action is becoming a source of strength. We also launched today the CDP Turkey 2025 report, which offers another important indicator. It's science, actually, a record on progress made by Turkish companies disclosing through CDP, and demonstrate what their leadership really looks like, but we will hear more about that in a bit. Let me close with this. The global economy is changing, expectations are changing. The companies that will lead the next era will not only be the ones that treat disclosure as a ticking box exercise, they will be the ones that become more resilient, more investable, more competitive, ultimately more successful. And this is the opportunity in front of us. My sincere congratulations to all today's award recipients. Thank you, CDP Turkey, and all the partners for your work. And thank you all. As Samalo Naran from Garanti said, we can do it together. Thank you for the continued commitment, helping us turning reporting momentum into real world progress, stronger businesses, and a more Earth positive future. Teşekkür ederim.